Hi, welcome again to Constance Tuesdays at 2. Won't you join me as we take a trip down the America's Highway? I remember from a very young age being around cars. My dad was a car enthusiast from an early age. By the time I was 6, my father had left his 9-to-5 business to sell cars. In this picture, you can see that family pictures always included a car. Usually it was red. Please no jokes about the knee socks. My dad decided to sell cars. At any given time, we would have a number of cars parked at our house. A lot of them were classic cars, some were muscle cars, and often they were red. The term classic, vintage, and muscle, when referring to cars, often gets confused. A classic car is considered to be any car that is over 20 years old. A car is considered antique if it is over 45 years old, and vintage if it was manufactured between 1919 and 1930. Yet in California, a car is called historical if it was built after 1922 and is at least 25 years old. Muscle cars, however, are in a class all their own. They are as American as apple pie, hot dogs, and baseball. The first American muscle car arrived in 1949 as the demand for faster cars grew stronger. Oldsmobile introduced the Rocket 88 with a high compression overhead valve V8 engine and a lightweight Oldsmobile body. The need for fast cars started in the 1920s with prohibition and the desire to outrun police cars. With NASCAR in its infancy, the muscle car took over in the 50s and the Rocket had competition from Chrysler Corporation's Hemi and Chevrolet's small block V8. Chrysler introduced the Hemi in 1955 with the Chrysler C300. This car is known as one of America's most powerful cars with 300 horsepower. However, the momentum for muscle cars would soon slow down. In 1957, the Automobile Manufacturers Association put a ban on factory-sponsored racing due to a catastrophic racing accident in the 1955 24 Hours of Le Mans race. The race killed driver Pierre Levin and 83 other individuals who were mostly spectators. Levin's car brushed another car, flew into the stands, burst into flames, exploded, and threw metal through the crowd. It is still to this day considered the worst crash in racing history. The GM president at the time of the crash thought that self-imposed bans would keep the government from imposing racing regulations. However, competition from car makers that were not in the Automobile Manufacturers Association became too great, and the ban was lifted in 1963, which became a rise in the surge to muscle cars again. Drag racing saw its highest popularity in the early 60s. Dodge had the 1962 Dart with a 13-second quarter mile. Still, this was not fast enough. Speed mattered. In 1963, Pontiac's Super Duty had what was called a Swiss cheese frame, meaning it quite literally had holes drilled into the chassis rails, making it much lighter. With the release of one of my personal favorites, Pontiac brought in the golden age of muscle cars with the 1964 Tempest GTO. GTO is an abbreviation for Gran Turismo Omologado, which merely meant the car was approved for races. The GTO had appeal and muscle. With a price tag of $3,200, it was affordable to the younger people, and they actually sold 6 times as many as predicted. In the same year, Ford produced the Thunderbolt. The Thunderbolt had a 427 cubic inch displacement. Today, that would be considered a 6.9 liter engine and would have far too high horsepower. Only 127 were made, as it was banned after that. Speed was definitely the consideration for muscle cars. If it wasn't fast, you might as well park it somewhere and lose the keys. The top five fastest muscle cars from the 1960s and 70s as recorded in 2018 are the 1964 Pontiac GTO. The Pontiac GTO had a high level of speed and horsepower for the time and could reach 60 miles per hour in 6.6 seconds. The 1967 Shelby Cobra 427 Super Snake. This was designed by Carroll Shelby. With its Paxton superchargers, it had amazing horsepower. The 1969 Ford Mustang 428 Cobra Jet. This Cobra had a high level of performance, larger valves, a hood scoop, and ram air induction. The 1973 Del Tomaso Pantera was designed by an Argentinian racing driver, Alejandro de Tomaso, and at one time this car was actually driven by Elvis. In 1968, the Dodge Charger RT was considered one of the fastest muscle cars. It's still popular today and has a 440 cubic inch 4-barrel Magnum V8 engine and 375 horsepower. Definitely a car for speed. Muscle car is an American term for high performance coupes. Typically, they were rear-wheel drive, fitted with high displacement V8 engines. While muscle car enthusiasts debate engines, the top 5 have an undeniable place in history. In 5th place is the Pontiac 389. In 1964, John DeLorean was the Pontiac chief engineer at the time, and he introduced the concept of an optional engine package. Customers could purchase the GTO, which utilized the 389 engine, thereby bypassing GM's internal engine limits of the small block 330. In 4th place is the Corvette L88. In 1966, GM unveiled the 427, an engine that took 2 years to design. The L88 was a race engine, no doubt, with 560 horsepower output. The big block bad boy gave Corvette victories in 1969 and 1970 in the European race series, the FIA GT Championships. 3rd place went to the Buick Stage 1. This 455 engine was used in the Grand Sport seen here. It had 390 horsepower and 510 pounds of torque. There is still quite a debate between Buick and Mopar enthusiasts regarding which engine is faster, and several race battles have been had to try to prove which vehicle is faster, which engine is faster. 2nd place belongs to the 426 Hemi. The 426 was a powerhouse originally meant just for racing. In 1964, when the Daytona 500 saw 1st through 4th places go to to cars with the 426 engine, stricter rules were put in place, which led to a streetcar version. First place engine is Ford 427 Camry. This engine was Ford's answer to the Hemi, as Hemi had been trademarked. The Camry saw a short life as it was banned from racing. Ford dropped production in early '67 due to the difficulty and the expense of production. There is no doubt that muscle cars are sought after gems today. One only needs to watch a Mecum live auction to see some of the most gorgeous muscle and sports cars around. The 5 most sought after classic muscle cars are the Shelby GT 500 KR, beautiful car. The Chevrolet Chevelle SS LS. I can tell you that we had one of these in our yard. The Plymouth Barracuda. Love the lime green. It's one of my wishes to own one day. The Pontiac GTO. And the Oldsmobile 442. If you're lucky enough, you might catch one of these beauties going across the auction line. For a split second, you can dream of putting your hand in the air to bid, but often these cars carry a huge price tag for the everyday person. A 1966 Pontiac GTO in perfect condition can range anywhere from $45,000 to $143,000 at auction. It's definitely not for the faint of heart or light of wallet. 2 biggest names in classic muscle cars and sports cars are Mecum and Barrett Jackson. Both companies have multiple auctions throughout the year in different locations in the United States. You can watch them live on television. If you happen to go to Hershey, PA in the summer, you could watch Mecum live. The Hershey venue is the closest auction to Lancaster County. If you ever get the opportunity to go, do it. The energy is amazing, and you cannot help but get engulfed in the excitement. You will find yourself saying things like, I remember, or that is beautiful, or do you remember when Grandpa had? Take your camera. You'll definitely want pictures. The other car venue enthusiasts always enjoy is the American Car Show. They can be found in every state. Some are pop-up shows, some are car clubs, and some are well-known. Here in Pennsylvania, you can check out Carlisle's Car Show, which draws over 100,000 people, or you can take in the Fall Car Show in Hershey that's sponsored by the Antique Auto Club. That takes in over 200,000 people. There is also the Elegance at Hershey, a weekend event that's sanctioned by the Vintage Sports Car Club of America. It's a 3-day event, and you'll step back in time to hill climbs and garden parties featuring some of the world's best vintage cars. If you get a chance to check out Ocean City, Maryland's Cruise in Ocean City that's in May, definitely go. This car show is nonstop action, and you'll feel like you've stepped back in time to the days of drive-ins and street racing. My personal dream is to one day own a lime green Plymouth Barracuda or a plum Pontiac GTO. What is your dream? Thank you for joining me again on Tuesdays at 2. I hope you've enjoyed your afternoon with me, and I hope you get out today and you can enjoy the afternoon in this beautiful day. If you have any suggestions or ideas for future shows, contact me at Michelle@Constance1, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.